Rick, good to see you.
Hey, Keith Jones. How are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing great, man. We're doing really great. So let's do a podcast that poses the question, is your life the state of the world around you or your psyche?
Hmm.
And Michael Singer describes the psyche as being this part of you that is made up of all the things, concepts, and experiences that you've had that kind of shape who you are. It's a self concept that you come up with. You know, if you've been hurt, then and you haven't like processed that or let that go, then that becomes part of your psyche. The environment that you grow up perhaps that's shaped how you see the world about it's us versus them, or we're different, or whether it's based on all kinds of variations in people, whether it's their skin color or their gender or the socioeconomic level in which they're born into. Whatever it is, all those things make up who you think you are. And so you see the world that way. But are you seeing the world as it actually is? And I have been shocked and surprisingly so since I've been doing the practice of how limiting my life has been when I've seen it through the latter, through my psyche, through those experiences and things like that. Growing up in Tennessee, I grew up in an environment in which there was a lot of history and tradition that was based on people being different, about some people being superior, other people being inferior. And so that really shaped some of my psyche about how I could be around other people, how I engaged with them, how I saw them or viewed them. And once I moved away from Tennessee, fortunately, I had different experiences that shaped how I saw the world very, very differently and allowed me to let go of that limitation from the past of where I grew up during my childhood. And step by step, what I've been trying to do is dismantle this psyche that results in me having a closed heart to other people, even people that let's say have not treated me well, because of their psyche or their learned experiences, to let that go too, so it doesn't become a limitation on me. What I've seen happen a lot of times is that one person from a group is not kind or respectful, and then you start, putting everybody in that category. Let's say in the healthcare field, let's say there's a doctor who doesn't treat you like a peer, but treats you more like a servant, then you assume that all physicians treat you this way, or physicians who are these kind of physicians, like all surgeons are arrogant, egotistical, and things like that. Like that becomes like how you see the world. When what my experience has been, all the surgeons that I get to work with at Mayo Clinic are kind and giving and just uplifting. I mean, they have put me in situations to thrive at Mayo Clinic where I have autonomy and I'm treated with respect in like a peer. The same thing goes for race. There are some people that have this idea that someone who looks different than them, that they can't be trusted. Man, I trust everybody. Like, period. Like, you don't have to earn my trust. You automatically got it. And I'm also aware that people are going to behave to the level of their consciousness. If they're conscious, you can expect them to behave really great with an open heart. If they're not conscious, well, anybody's guess how this person is going to show up, including me. So what I've learned is that I don't want my life to be the state of my psyche. That's limiting. I want my life to be the state of me being self-aware, me being conscious, because then I won't take things personal. I'll be working on myself. I'll use every situation to let go of my lower self so I could be, more fully connected and loving and kind and peaceful. So what are your thoughts, Rick, about this topic? Is your life the state of the world around you or the state of your psyche?
I, Keith, I think both of us are on the same page on the idea that your entire life is determined by your psyche, by your attitude. You determine how you're going to be happy and how much you're going to be happy based on your psyche, not external events, because you always have a choice This sounds difficult and it sounds impossible, but we always have a choice about how we want to react. And you're right. I think every person's reality is a function of everything that's happened to them. Like Singer says, things that are not quite worked out remain until they are worked out. And that creates this overall filter of reality. I have it, you have it, everybody on the planet has it, where we tend to look at things through the lens only of our experience. So in other words, if that comes up in a negative way, that we have an opinion about something, we magnify the negative aspects of a situation and filter out all the positive ones. So that's partly, I think, what confirmation bias is involved in. I know myself, when I have a set view about, say, a person or a group or a politician, I look for things unconsciously. I look for things that confirm my opinion of him or her. I don't think, oh, well, this statement could mean this, could mean that, or I don't know enough about the situation to make a judgment about or to be in a position to have an opinion. But the problem with that is that we give up all of the opportunities for an objective way of looking at our lives. And I think that also plays into another thing, which is polarizing. Uh,
Mm.
I tend to also uh, see things either as good or bad, as black or white, no middle ground. And I find myself when I'm into that mode, man, that's a very difficult, terrible feeling inside because after a while you realize everything's pretty much gray.
Yeah.
And that's a hard way to live, though, because you can't, we're programmed to have shortcuts. We deal with things based on stereotypes. And that's a logical, intelligent, intellectual process. The idea that you create a category of things, you identify patterns, and the human mind then make sure that you act in a way that is consistent with how you identify those patterns. And so if you see things only as good or bad, you'll never get out of that mode. You'll never get out of the idea that there could be another slice of way of looking at this, another slice of reality that you're not considering. And the middle ground is pretty much where everything is. That's kind of what happens in science, right? I mean, when I was a kid, I think we had microscopes and we basically looked at little, maybe 100 times magnification level. But now you can do, I don't know how many times more than that. So what I saw in my reality when I was looking at, let's say, a slide of Parmesan or something, I would have opinions based on what that looked like. But now, as science has advanced, I realize that reality that I'm looking at, it's not true. That's not really what it looks like. And so, what do I do with that information as an old guy who learned something completely different when I was a kid? I have to acknowledge that my view of it was incomplete. I don't say it's wrong. It was incomplete. It was based on what I knew at the time. So, I guess getting back to the theme today is the idea that polarizing thinking, along with filtering, can get us in the way of experiencing a rich and full life because what we end up doing is we become a slave to our psyche and we always consider our prejudices and our stereotypes before we consider the possibility that there's another way of looking at it. And if we're mindful of it, it goes a hell of a long way to curing it, to having a better life and a more compassionate life toward other people and ourselves.
I can't add any more to that, Rick. You nailed it. Man, thank you so much, Rick. I love you. And yeah, that was fantastic, Rick. Thank
Oh,
you.
thanks, thanks, Keith. I really like hearing what you have to say. It's so great because I'm by myself. I don't work, with other people, and I just love to hear your journey of what you're doing at Mayo's and spreading, as you say, kindness or sprinkling kindness. That's your job, and it really is wonderful for me to be part of that. Thanks.
Great, Rick. Thank you. I love you.
Love you. Adios.
Adios.